Welcome to St. Petersburg, where round one yesterday was a rough and tumble affair through the city streets and saw Jason Daskalos and Marco Radicic score class wins to kick off their respective championship bids. Today, round two, and 27 GT2, GT3, and GT4 cars and drivers have answered the bell for the second round of the GT America powered by AWS Championship. Hello, greetings from St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish joins me in the broadcast booth. We'll be hearing from Amanda Busick down in the pit lane here shortly. Tell you what, Calvin, it was a fun way to get the SRO America season started yesterday here on this great street course, multi-class racing. Big incident early, but once we went green, it was a fantastic battle across the two classes.
Well, a wild start, one we didn't look forward to seeing, but obviously with the street circuits and the start there with multi-class racing, it can happen. Once it settled down, we saw some superb performances. That class win by Daskalos under immense pressure from Scott Smithson. That was a great battle, which may resume here today. And Daskalos, a little bit out of position. The grid for today is set by fast laps. Yesterday, he won the race, but only 5th fastest time, so he'll roll off row 3 on the grid today.
A number of drivers were bit by misfortune early yesterday, and as a consequence, they start towards the back. Remember, in GT America, the grid for race 2 is set by the fastest lap for race 1. So drivers like Jeff Burton, for instance, who's been fast all weekend but was taken out in that incident yesterday, he's all the way at the back, not just of the GT3 field, but he will start at the very back in row 13.
Yeah, and only a couple of rows ahead of him is his teammate Jason Howard. So busy night for the Zalus team. They were here till 1 a.m. fixing damaged race cars from yesterday's race, but they have the speed and they just need a little bit of help. They need a good clean start, good first lap. Then if there was a momentary caution to reset the field a little bit, compress the field, let's not count them out for a podium run here today.
Had a chance to chat with Corey Lewis, who is a Lamborghini affiliated driver. He'll be driving alongside Jeff Burton in GT World Challenge America this year. He said he left the track at 9 o'clock and the two Zalus Lamborghinis were in total disrepair. Came back this morning and they looked like brand new race cars. He said it was amazing.
Yeah, they got to work early yesterday and just really analyzed things. They did have a spare chassis on the transport. It didn't have to go to that, so that was fortunate. Otherwise, that would have been even a later night for the team and the crew. But just a first-class job by Ty Isaac and the whole crew there, getting things put back together, and hopefully we'll see them have a good, strong run here today.
Let's talk GT4. It was a great fight to the finish. Marco Radicic didn't have a great qualifying effort, but he raced incredibly well, got up to the lead, and pulled away from there. And then the fight for the podium was tremendous from that point.
It really was, and you know, for TRG, they always do a great job here at St. Pete. It's one of their favorite events. Derek DeBoer hung on to that second position, but he's under immense pressure from Uretsky there late in the going. So Marco, even though he didn't qualify well after an incident in practice, kind of a residual effect in qualifying yesterday morning, but boy, he had the pace, got the lead, scampered away basically, and also laid down the fastest lap of the race. So he'll start from pole here today.
Speaking of GT4, these are the point standings leaving round one yesterday in this eight stop season, basically, for GT America powered by AWS. By virtue of that win, Marco Radicic, the early race leader, what a welcome back to pro racing for him after a year away. Derek DeBoer, nice clean start to that race, held off Mosey Uretsky, as you talked about. Ross Schwest put in a very good effort, and then Jason Bell, who had a great start, or at least starting position, had to avoid the carnage, got shuffled back to 10th, raced his way back up to 5th, and very nearly got Ross for 4th.
Yeah, he was right there knocking on the door of a podium. So for Jason Bell, our reigning GTA champion, he comes back to his home track, looking for better things here today, but he's got pace. I mean, he really got in a fierce fight with Paul Sparta on the restart. Took him a while to clear Paul, and then he chased down the leaders, but ran out of time yesterday.
Amanda is down among the 27 cars ready to go for race number 2 today. Amanda, what are the late developing stories you have your eyes on?
Well, it is now countdown to race number 2. You can see the teams are starting to arrive. We're going to see race cars behind us on this grid here shortly, but when you think of the carnage you guys were talking about in turn 1 yesterday, all the drivers are back to that anticipation of what's going to happen here in lap number 1, but the guys that are going to have the best position is going to be that front row, and yes, that is clean and clear for those that start this out, but George Kurtz really turned it on yesterday towards the end of the race. He ended up setting the best lap on the lap 19 towards the end of the race. race, and he knew that he wanted that CrowdStrike fastest lap so that he could make sure to have a clean and clear start to this race. But you have Mirko Schultes in that C7 Corvette. He was only bested by George Kurtz by less than 200ths of a second. But we all wait with bated breath of what's going to happen in turn 1 and see if we can survive this in St. Pete, race number 2.
Turn 1, lap 1 was treacherous yesterday. While Amanda was talking, we saw the highlights, or lowlights as it was, for many in the field. And tell you what, that is not an uncommon sight across multiple platforms. Racing here this weekend, we've seen turn 1 be a real problem area, especially on the initial start.
Well, with the rules here in SRO, once you see green, you can start to pass, even if you haven't got to the start-finish line. So that created a little bit of chaos there. It was a very fast final lap to get towards that initial green flag there, as you see the, I think that's the 08 of Scott Smith in there, struggling to get car turned there. So Cagnazzi from the pole, he got jumped by Brian Putt. Suddenly Brian Putt had that track position. He tried to flick around him, and suddenly the whole field was braking for turn 1, and he just misjudged it a little bit with dire consequences.
As we saw there, fortunately, everyone able to walk away. Certainly a disappointing and an expensive day for a number of teams, but we get to bounce back here, hopefully, with round number 2 of the championship today. We saw a moment ago the white Audi of Jason Daskelos. We talked about him briefly. He won the race yesterday, but he's got to start back in 5th. He looked really good on the initial start, and Cal, he told us before the race, getting a good start, getting that clear air, that was going to be the key for him to race 1. Well, not going to be easy doing that from 5th here in race 2.
Yeah, but with Jason, I think he's one of those guys who's had the confidence to really get up on the wheel early. So you got to temper that. We saw what happened yesterday if you get too aggressive. So I think he's going to try and make some moves. I think as the race settles in, those Mercedes are very, very strong. And the Callaway Corvette, boy, what a performance by Mirko yesterday, putting in that fast lap to put his car on the front row as well. So he's got a lot of work to do. He may feel his best opportunity is in these opening corners, opening laps to get that Audi back to the front there from P5 on the grid.
How good does that Callaway Corvette look? Only finished 7th yesterday. Kind of caught us by surprise with how fast that ultimate lap was. And he's an experienced driver, has a bit more experience than many he's going up against, including a class win at Petit Le Mans about 8 years ago. Of course, in a much different car, but nevertheless, plenty of experience to draw upon and a great starting position too.
And you'd have to think about the big picture of that. The car didn't even arrive in the US till last Friday, didn't clear customs till Monday evening. Then they had to scramble to get it over here to St. Petersburg. So for Mirko, it's really almost like a big test session. They're intending to run the full season. So if we think about yesterday, the progress he made in terms of those lap times during the race, does he have more to show here today? So if he can have a solid start and just get to grips with this track a little bit further, maybe he could shock everyone here today.
Amanda with more down in the pits as the grid begins to form up.
We have race cars behind us now, and row number 2 is going to be those DXDT Mercedes. And Cal, I know we stopped by that shop yesterday after the race, and it was all smiles. Though we don't have a Masters class that is for points here this season in GT America powered by AWS, we still recognize the winner of the Masters, and that went to David Askew. I think he had that first place Pirelli hat on, and it was just a big smile for him. But Scott Smithton, I want to go back to him. You guys mentioned his impressive fight yesterday. Even Jason Daskelos mentioned him in his winner's interview, but from your perspective, someone making their debut here right on an intimidating street course, what impressed you guys the most about Scott's debut?
Well, I think just the poise, Amanda, that he showed there. I mean, he didn't get impatient in terms of trying to go for the lead. I think if he could have timed some of the runs in traffic, he may have had an opportunity to win the race and get by Jason. But it's all about the big picture. Brian Sellers, after the race, was congratulating him in terms of having that discipline. That's what Brian is looking for. He's going to be his teammate for the season in GT World Challenge America. And the display that Scott put on yesterday put a big smile on Brian Sellers' face, because he feels as a duo, a combination, they could be really strong in that championship.
And keep in mind, Scott, this is his car right here. He's only been racing for 3 years. 2020, when he finished 3rd in the TCR championship in SRO, was his first year of racing. Prior to that, he got introduced by David Askew, actually, to the sport by getting invited out to a track day and totally got bit by it there. And it's been this rapid ascension since then. Yesterday was only his 2nd GT3 race, and his first street course race, and he still came away on the podium.
Just amazing. And you could just sense that it didn't look ragged. It didn't look too exciting. It just looked very calm and poised, like an experienced guy behind the wheel. So really great job. As you said, only his second GT3 race. He ran the Indy 8-hour at the end of last year. Did a couple of test days in prep for that. Done a little bit of testing at Sebring. So he's going to be learning. The curve is going to be massive for him. He's just going to get stronger and stronger as this season progresses in this car.
Big thumbs up a moment ago from the pole man, George Kurtz, CrowdStrike Racing, but this time run by Riley Motorsports after being part of the DXDT team for the last few seasons, and he gets the best view in the house leading this field to green. How anxious is he to put some frustration from this weekend behind him? It's not been a clear run.
I think he needs a good solid run, minimal fuss. I mean, I think if he can get the start and settle down, he displayed yesterday, he has the pace. He's laid down the fastest lap of the race. But it's with the new organization, Bill Riley, the Riley Motorsports team. Bill has so much experience with those AMG Mercedes, so the setup will be right. It's just really a case of just fine-tuning and getting in a groove with the team. But it's early days. I spoke to Bill this morning. They haven't done a ton of testing. They've got good setups to work with. George knows the car well. He's got Colin Brown in the stands talking him through this as a mentor, as a coach, and a co-driver later this season. So all of the key ingredients are there, but it's race day. I mean, everything changes when that green flag flies, as we saw yesterday.
2 times a race winner in GT America, powered by AWS a year ago, sweeping the weekend at Sonoma. Marco Radicic back in the championship for the first time since 2020. And he had a day to remember yesterday, driving through that GT4 field and putting this SRO Motorsports Group race car, the BMW M4 GT4, in the winner's circle. Great job by the Serbian driver, now based here in Florida, in Sarasota, where the team is based, and they've got big plans for the year. Got them kicked off the right way.
They did, and big support from Touchpoint, and he's opening up a new restaurant here in Sarasota's, Flirt Sushi. So he's excited about this year. It's great to be back racing. He was here back in 2020, and obviously with the pandemic that occurred and the event was canceled, he's looking to bounce back. Doesn't have a lot of seat time over the last 12 months, but he gets up on the wheel. I mean, he loves his racing. He's as fit as a fiddle, and he just gets in there and gets the job done. So great performance yesterday. Kind of surprising not to see him fighting and getting into that podium run and ultimately the win, but just the pace. That's what really surprised me yesterday.
Impressive stuff indeed. One more time, back to the pits and Amanda.
Well, Brian, we're catching up with President and CEO of SRO America, Greg Gill, as he's going around and wishing all the drivers good luck here this morning. But we're kicking off the GT America powered by AWS season right here in St. Pete. What's it like seeing all these entries and being here?
It's fantastic. We've been pleased. You know, we started this series 2 years ago. The growth has been phenomenal. But to get back to St. Pete, it's my 10-year anniversary of the series. So this is like homecoming. And it's fantastic. The weather, the people, and then this great classification of cars. Between the GT3 cars, the GT4, even a GT2, it's awesome. What a great weekend, and we're excited for everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
There's a lot of momentum, wind in the sails of the SRO Motorsports Group here in America. Admittedly, a few years back, car counts weren't where anybody wanted, but through the pandemic, the growth continued, and now in the first, this is really the first season opener where it feels like something akin to normal,
right.
what we experienced prior to 2020. And the grid looks great. All the rumors about what we can expect when the rest of the championships get started in Sonoma are very encouraging as well, and makes it easy for Greg Gill to smile.
And I think Greg's spot on in terms of coming back to St. Pete. It feels right. I've been coming here since 1985, raced here a couple of times in the late 80s. It's a wonderful venue. It's been embraced by the state, embraced by the county here, and great support. I mean, I was into the track early this morning. Big coach loads of fans were rolling up and, you know, pouring into the entrances here at the racetrack. It's a spectacular weekend. The setting is perfect. The weather is absolutely amazing, close to 80 degrees here today, and just the perfect setting for the opening rounds of the championship.
Tell you what, I've been doing some pit reporting for some other series this weekend, and walking through the pit lane, it's crowded. It feels different, unlike anything that we've experienced the last couple of years. And even for St. Pete, I've been coming here for about 10 years now as well, and there is a different buzz this year.
There's an energy. It's great, and look at these cars. I mean, what a field we have. 26 cars. We'll see the green. Cagnazzi from yesterday. He's going to take a breather today. A lot of damage to that race car. He'd hurt his back a little bit, so he's going to settle down and get ready for Sonoma. So shame that we're not going to see yesterday's pole-sitting car back out there today. But 26 cars spread across the 3 classes, plus the 1 invitational car with the Porsche Cayman there with Rob Holland. They put on a show, and it's going to be a good day.
Let's talk about this racetrack here in St. Pete. Racing has been going on in St. Petersburg or the surrounding area since the 80s, like you talked about, Calvin. But this particular configuration of the circuit, 14 turns, 5 to the left, 9 to the right, 1.8 miles in length. And it's proven to be not just a fan favorite, but a driver favorite too. Lots of interesting passing opportunities, some more flowing sections as well in parts than you see in a typical street course.
Yeah, that's the cool part about it, is that it's really got some really high-speed turns, which are very challenging. Then you got the typical street course stuff, concrete walls, changes of surface, getting too close and clipping a barrier and maybe not having a big incident then, but is there any suspension damage in the subsequent corners? So it keeps you on your toes, and let's not forget there's a lot of rookies in this field here, competing in their first pro races, competing on their first street circuit. So hats off to everyone. We had the big incident yesterday at the start, Ryan, but other than that, through the practice sessions, through the remainder of the race, everyone did a really solid job.
Taking care of one another, that's been a big topic of conversation throughout the paddock. The GT3 field, by and large, has flashed through. Now we're taking a look at some of the GT4 machinery with some GT3s intermixed in there. As we talked about earlier, the field set by the fastest lap of the race from yesterday, and a number of GT3 contenders basically didn't have a lap to fall back on. As we look at the starting grid, front row, the pole man, George Kurtz. He'll have the German driver making his series debut, Mirko Schultes, in the Callaway Corvette next to him. David Askew and Scott Smithson, DXDT Racing teammates in row 2. Yesterday's winner, Jason Daskalo, starts 5th with rookie Justin Wetherill, Ferrari Challenge veteran alongside Ziad Gondor, another driver with Ferrari Challenge experience, and yesterday's GT4 winner, Marco Radisik. CJ Moses in the lone GT2 machine starts 9th. Moise Uretsky, a podium man yesterday in GT4, is 10th. Jason Bell, hometown guy from Tampa Bay, he starts 11th. Overall, Ray Newell, great qualifying effort based on fast lap yesterday, will start 2nd. Todd Coleman and Ross Schwest making up the 7th row of the grid. Chris Gumprecht and Derek DeBoer, who was on the podium yesterday but has some work to do today, all the way back at 16th overall. Paul Sparta, Sean Whalen, as we get a bit further back in the field. Custodio Toledo, who made his pro racing debut yesterday, as did Nick Shanny, they will share row 10. Jason Harward, one of the GT3 cars, mired back in traffic, starts 21st. Rick Euler, a debutant, starting alongside. Rob Holland in an invitational Porsche that is one of the new specification Caymans that's not fully homologated just yet, starting 23rd. Brian Putt, 24th. And Jeff Burton, shotgun on the field, but keep an eye on that Zelus Motorsports Lamborghini. He has been fast, just not very fortunate so far this weekend.
Yeah, well, he made that big move down the inside. Not responsible for the incident that was happening amongst the GT4 cars, but they obviously got into the back of him with massive damage to that Lamborghini Huracan. So I'm sure he's a little bit nervous about how to approach this start from further back in the field than he even was yesterday.
This is the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 complex. A bunch of primarily 90-degree turns going around Pioneer Park, the Salvador Dali Museum in the background there. Also nearby Al Lang Stadium, which is home now to the USL Minor League Soccer Tampa Bay Rowdies, and formerly hosted spring training for the likes of the Yankees, Cardinals, Mets, and Orioles, just part of the scenery. Now this is the run down towards the marina area where all the yachts are parked. This is the part of the course that gives the Monaco of the US to this race venue.
Yeah, it's really high speed down there through Bayshore Drive. That little kink there doesn't have a number on that turn, but it's certainly very demanding, even with the high downforce nature of these GT3 machines. So other than that sector you talked about between 4 and 9 is pretty much medium and high speed the rest of the way around this racetrack.
Now the final run here through a high-speed kink. Turns 11 and 12 into 13 and 14. We saw the lights off on the safety car. Mike Stillwagon will pilot that Ferrari down to the pit lane and turn the field over to the control of George Kurtz That's the CrowdStrike liveried Mercedes to the left of the screen. Mirko Schultes in the Callaway Corvette starting on the outside, and the green flag flies on race 2 of the championship. Great getaway for George Kurtz, and here comes Smithson and Askew looking to pounce on Schultes. Contact further back, Daskalos spinning around. I think that Schultes spinning around off the nose of Daskalos, but we continue on. Looks like everybody else able to get through turn 1.
Yeah, I think Ziad Gandor got down to the inside of Daskalos, and the result was that Mirko got turned around there.
Tough break for the outside pole sitter. Here's the GT4 field. Derek DeBoer, he's got Jason Bell right there in the mix, and one of the DXDT Mercedes got shuffled back. There might have been some contact there between those two cars.
Yeah, Smithson there not having a great start from the second row of the grid, so he's now got to be very patient and thread his way through this GT4 traffic.
And if we saw a spot for him to learn a little bit from yesterday, it was managing the traffic. That's where he lost out to Jason Daskalos.
And that's the experience. You can drive a race car fast, but having that race knowledge, how to time a pass. There we see Witherall there. He also had a poor start, it looks like.
They're running amidst the GT4 cars. Here we go.
Here's Burton making some big moves.
Able to clear Ray Newell's Heart of Racing Aston Martin GT4 right behind Jason Harward. Also making his way forward. Those are the two Zalus teammates that had to start towards the back.
He's going to be, is everything cleared down in turn 1? Here come the leaders.
So Askew trying to fend off Gondor. That is the fight for second here as one lap is in the books on the streets of St. Petersburg. George Kurtz able to get away, I believe.
Yeah, I think Kurtz is down the road by about 3 seconds. So this is a battle for second right now. We saw Ziad very much in that moment down in turn 1.
Great to have him back in the series. Ran a partial schedule for this TR3 racing team 1 year ago, and indeed this is George Kurtz making good his escape. There you can see the difference. Gondor taking a peek to the inside. Don't usually see many overtakes through here, but he had an idea.
The problem is if you try and give it to the man on the inside, you're suddenly out in the gray area, and sometimes you just can't make the corner. So David had to be very aggressive there and turn in a little bit earlier and take that track position away.
Picture perfect start for these two who were a little bit further back. Gondor in particular, he started back in 7th, so up 4 spots on that first lap. Great job weaving through the chaos in the early going.
Very much a funneling effect down in turn 1, so I'm sure the stewards are looking at that incident to see if Ziad was indeed a contributing factor to the spin for Mirko Schultes. But up front, in the CrowdStrike entry, it's George Kurtz streaking away here as the battle continues between David Askew and Ziad Gandor for second.
Big talking point all weekend is that part of the track there. We'll get to that in a moment. First, a replay of the start. Your thoughts?
Well, look at Daskalos in the middle of the pack there, and look to the inside, that white Lamborghini Huracan. Down to the inside, he gets a bit of a nudge, maybe. You know, from CJ Moses, but may have forced him into that little opening in the traffic. So difficult when the ABS kicks in, Ryan. We talk about the painted stripes down there in the turn 1 braking area. If you suddenly activate that ABS, it's taken braking away. There's nothing you could do about it. That may have been a contributing factor there.
Look at all the chaos in the background of that shot. The different classes all mixed together. Some cars trying to determine whether or not there was any damage taken. And meanwhile, all by his lonesome out in front. This is exactly how George Kurtz wanted this race to begin.
Well, his last lap was a 2.5 quicker than the chasing pack behind him. So right now he's just breaking away up to nearly 5 seconds now is the gap to second place runner David Askew.
Looking for his 3rd win in GT America competition. Dropping back, that's Justin Wetherell. He's ahead of Derek DeBoer, who has now jumped to the lead in GT4. So this is the 2nd straight day that, despite a less than ideal starting position, Derek, using the experience he has, he's raced here, he was able to get through the chaos and get a great position.
Well, we've had a little bit of chaos down in turn 1, 2 starts in a row. So we now see the 69 car. That's Coleman there. That's down in turn 10, is it?
That's what it looked like to me. Big runoff area there, backed up with tire bundles. And it's a good thing, too, as we saw when SRO was here a few years ago. Bentley had braking issues in that spot. It's a scary moment for Alvaro Perez.
Jason Howard there, taking care of business, getting around our GT4 leader, DeBoer. So trying to go one better than yesterday, but he's got the local man on his tail right now. Jason Bell, defending GT America GT4 champion. Had a much better start to this race than he did yesterday.
Although there is some damage to the left front of that car, definitely missing some of the dive planes and some loose body work. You can see it there, the right-hand side as he's coming at us, but left hand as far as the driver is concerned.
Gumprecht up to third there in that blue Mercedes AMG machine. Uretsky off the podium yesterday, now sits in the 4th position. Gray Newell, a nice start in the top 5.
Sparta and then Radisik, who was the winner in GT4 yesterday, back in the 7th position in class, 15th overall.
Well, just like yesterday, not a great start for the GT4 pole sitter. Yesterday was Cagnazzi, today Marco Radisik. Got some work to do.
It's a tough spot to find yourself in because there's no class split, and some of the top GT4 drivers might be a bit more willing to be aggressive at the start than some of the inexperienced GT3 drivers. They're lining up right behind, and it causes some issues, especially into turn 1 here.
Smithson really up on the wheel now, running P4, just laid down the fastest lap of the race, about 1.5 seconds quicker than the leaders. He is flying around the streets of St. Pete right now.
Crowd strike fastest lap of the race thus far to Scott Smithson in that DXDT Racing Mercedes, just his 3rd GT3 start ever, only 2nd street course start. The first one, of course, was yesterday, and he said, quite frankly, this track is intimidating. He told Amanda that yesterday. He told me that too this morning. You wouldn't know it with the way he drives.
Now, well, he's got the pace and he's got the time on the clock to get back to the front here. It's all going to be about how he deals with this traffic in terms of making the passes, because he has monster speed right now. But just as we saw yesterday, timing those passes is going to be the key here to try and chase down George Kurtz.
He just ran a 1:14 flat. George Kurtz ran a 1:15.1, so that's an advantage of over a second per lap on the race leader. Jeff Burton just reset the fastest lap of the race, running back in 5th, so a great recovery from him. Remember, he was started at the very end of the field, tail end Charlie, and he's worked his way through the GT4 field and now runs 5th, but 17 seconds behind the leader.
Yeah, 17 seconds behind the leader, 10 seconds behind Smithson right now, so he's got a lot of work to do, but he's got clear racetrack right now. Here's Jeff Burton. This car, not total rebuild, but they had a lot of work to do on that chassis last night.
Yeah, it was a big one, and he actually had a couple of hits yesterday. Had the spin in qualifying, nosed into the barrier just a little bit before where we're looking at this shot here. That wasn't massive damage, but it was definitely a setback. Certainly impacted his starting position, and then that played into where he was when the incident broke out.
Well, it looked like a harmless spin, lost him his fast lap, but what that did was mire him in the middle of that GT4 pack for the start, and then we saw the consequences of it yesterday. So right now, clear track ahead, going to get his head down. He's a really aggressive driver, has huge passion for racing. Love the way he goes about his craft here.
Working with Corey Lewis this year, who will be his co-driver in GT World Challenge America, the 90-minute 2-driver format that will debut for this season at Sonoma in about a month or so. And I think that's going to really help him. I mean, he's had good help from Vesko Kozarov in the past and the Reardon Racing team, but sometimes a new voice in the ear can be helpful. Corey brings a wealth of experience.
So much seat time with that Lamborghini Huracan. That'll be great for Jeff Burton. Here's a nice little battle inside the top 5 in GT4. Uretsky has it in that bright yellow Toyota GR Supra GT4 machine, and the Aston Martin man gives chase.
Well, we'll watch this battle unfold, but while we do so, unfortunately, we're speaking to Jason Daskalos a bit earlier than we would like. Yesterday's winner is out of his car and with Amanda.
Yeah, turn 1 had another victim here in St. Pete. And Jason, from your perspective of where you were at the track, what happened in turn 1?
Well, I mean, we all got into the braking zone, and people from behind think they can come in on the inside, and when you get on that paint, you just can't stop. So I was making my turn into turn 1, and the Lamborghini decided to dive bomb us all and hit me, and then I got hit into the Corvette. So it's just a shame because we had a great car and we were going to try to, move to the front like yesterday. So it's a shame for the team, but next one, right?
Well, I heard you guys did have a nice prime rib dinner at the Airbnb last night. What will you take from the weekend?
Well, I mean, we learned a lot about this Audi R8 and, getting a win. And, obviously today isn't great, but we'll take the win and move on to the next round.
During the interview, we saw Brian Putt stranded on course. He had damage yesterday in turn 1. That's the B-Sport Racing driver. Also saw another replay of the restart. Calvin, what did you pick up?
Well, I think there was definitely a little nudge on Ziad Gando from behind from CJ Moses. They all kind of buried into that brake zone there. So I don't think it's really Ziad's fault, just a consequence.
And that was my thought as well when we saw it for the first time. This is the man out in front, George Kurtz. Proud Strike Racing, Riley Motorsports. Had a decent run yesterday, good enough to get on pole, but we drop back here to the fight for the final podium spot in GT3. The GT4 field already mixed up in it. Gondor for the moment able to hang on to that position, but Scott Smithson is on the attack.
He has caught him, and it's all about how quickly can he dispense with him. Otherwise, he's going to run out of time, even though there's 29 minutes there. Kurtz has done a really solid job up front, running super consistent lap times in the 1:14, 1:15 range.
It's Mirko Schultes out of the Callaway Corvette. His day 2 done early with 10 minutes off the clock. 40 minutes comes very quickly on the streets of St. Pete. We're already 1/4 of the way plus through this race. This is a big moment here, though, for Smithson. We saw him learning, dealing with the traffic, trying to make the overtake yesterday, now trying to put those lessons to use to get him back up on the podium.
Yeah, and I'm sure they talked about that last night. And the other thing is, I don't believe he's going for a full championship run here in GTA. So obviously he can take a few more risks here and trying to get that position, seeing a change for the lead there in GT4.
Meanwhile, this, I believe, is David Askew, who's gone around in the car that had been running second overall.
Yeah, and he's going to lose that track position, so he's lost that second position. Gando should be up to second now. Smithson now in a podium run.
And now the question is, where is Jeff Burton? But yes, to give Jason Bell full credit, the hometown guy who has put a lot of pressure on himself to get a good result this weekend, now leads in GT4. Does look like Jeff Burton was able to make that pass, as was Justin Wetherill, as was Jason Harward. So that was a costly spin. Don't want to say miscue because we didn't see what happened, but David Askew plummeted from second all the way down to 7th.
Well, sometimes when you get down those escape roads or those little areas that you can get the car turned around, it's not easy, and then the traffic is coming through. You have to be patient. You can't jump out in case you stall the car in front of the traffic. So big moment in this race for David Askew.
He'll be disappointed, that's for sure, but the team car running now up in 3rd. That's Smithson, who is half a second behind Gondor, and then here's the leader, George Kurtz. Now, talked about it some yesterday. Many of these drivers don't have a ton of experience in multi-class racing, but George does. He's been doing some of the longer distance IMSA races in a class where you're both being passed and doing some passing. Does that help him here, even in a GT car?
I think absolutely. Just seat time and running in multi-class racing at all levels, whether you're the slower car or the faster car. George coming off a podium run at the Rolex 24 just last month here in Florida. So good start to his year. They won at Sebring, the 12-hour, which they'll return to next month as well. So he's learning his craft, and he's got great tutelage with Colin Brown as his teammate on a regular basis.
Jason Bell out in front in GT4 here at the moment, with Derek DeBoer giving chase. Got an update from Amanda in the pits that Mirko Schultes, his issue is a slipping clutch, so it does not look like he will be returning.
Or if he damaged it just trying to get the car turned around there with hot tires. Sometimes you can really do that when you got bumped there in turn 1 and to get the car turned. Sometimes you can damage the drivetrain.
This is, other than the damage to the car, exactly what Jason Bell had in mind for this weekend. He's got about 100 guests here as he looked to entertain here on home soil, hoping to put in a good performance. He was so frustrated yesterday, and his driver coach and co-driver in Pirelli GT4 America, Andrew Davis, told me just kind of had to talk him down a little bit. Look, you got through the issues yesterday. A lot of people weren't so lucky. You've got a weapon you know you can go fight with today.
Yeah, I think that's all part of the learning process. You got to learn how to go quick. You got to learn how to do it consistently without mistakes. But then there's racecraft, and he had a poor start, got bottled up behind another competitor, was frustrated, was telling the team on the radio, I'm being blocked. And Andrew told me this morning, probably told you the same thing. When I looked at it, it wasn't really being blocked. It's just hard to pass here on the streets of St. Petersburg. He just had to settle him down, get the pass done, and then he took off with his lap times.
Looking at the bright yellow Toyota Supra of Moise Uretsky, who scored podium on his debut in GT America, powered by AWS just one day ago. Gray Newell in the background. giving chase. Gray's not one who's done much on street courses in the past. In fact, his racing resume basically goes back to last year.
Right.
That's about it. But he's been a quick study, and the way he finished last year was incredibly encouraging.
Yeah, really would have given him a lot of confidence. They haven't done a ton of testing in the offseason. Spoke to Ian James, who's the team manager there at the Harder Racing team. Ian won here in GT4 competition back in 2019. So what a great sounding board he is for Gray Newell in terms of a coach and mentor to him. But he said he comes to St. Pete, didn't have a great Nashville, and had a big crash there on the streets of Nashville. So a little bit intimidating coming here this weekend, but he's approached it nicely, thoroughly, just gradually picking up the pace.
And unlike many of these competitors for whom this is their first race of the season, Gray actually raced in the 24 hours of Dubai in a GT4 Aston going back a little over a month or so and finished runner-up in class. He told me, I feel like I've been racing and driving so much over the off-season that there wasn't any rust to knock off here this weekend.
Right. Now that's good. I mean, seat time is key, right? So particularly at this stage of their learning career. So, but here we see George Kurtz kind of really having to be patient here, trying to cut his way through traffic. I'm sure the team has given him the gap back to Gandor right now, but he's got a 10-second lead. He's got plenty to work with here, so don't take any risk.
And is the GT4 runners talking about Uretsky and Newell 4th and 5th. They're putting a lap on one of the slower cars in the GT4 class at the moment. Radisic, though, is starting to inch his way into contention. He's up to 6th, and slowly but surely it looks like he's making ground on Uretsky. That's the car we're looking at here. Radisic running 6th. Yesterday's winner in GT4.
Yeah, he's on the charge once again, and he said even in the race yesterday, the car wasn't perfect. They worked on it a little bit more last night. He's hoping for a faster race car today, but I don't think he was having to feel that he was going to have to come so deep in the field starting from the pole, but he's kept the car clean. He's on the charge right now. A ton of time left on the clock. We're not even halfway right now. And certainly things are compressing at the front of the GT3 field as well. As Smithson is right on the tail of Gandor now.
Should note that the car that they were putting a lap down a few moments ago was the sister car to this one. Rick Euler making his pro racing debut this weekend, and by all accounts having a ball. But yeah, great point. And I'm also seeing Jeff Burton listed in the pits. He had a really good run going, but is perhaps dropping down. Drive-through penalty is what we're seeing from race
pass
control.
Under yellow, turn 10 apparently. So that's really going to scupper his chances of having a solid run here today. What a frustrating weekend for Jeff Burton.
You saw it on the screen a moment ago as well. David Askew has recovered to pass Jason Harward on that last lap, so that's 6th and 7th in GT4, or GT3 rather, but the focus right now is here on this fight for second. Ziad Gondor and Scott Smithson. Gondor in the white Lamborghini, trapped behind GT4 traffic. Smithson in the multicolored DXDT Racing Mercedes, who runs 3rd. All of this about 9 seconds behind the race leader, George Kurtz.
Well, Ziad just has a ton more racing experience than Smithson, who's given chase right now. He ran 6 years in Ferrari Challenge, done a lot of rally racing, so he's going to try and use that and leverage that experience right now to keep Smithson at bay.
Evidently earned a nickname Z-Hog when he was engaged in that rallying, but very quick behind the wheel of a GT3 car, as we've seen over the last few years. And that Ferrari Challenge has been a nice stepping stone for several drivers in this field, both in GT3 and GT4.
Well, they have a lot of horsepower, don't have the downforce of these GT3 cars, so these GT3 cars should be a little bit easier to drive. Smithson now should get a big run here.
He should. By the way, there might be a bigger story on the Harward situation, because he's dropped all the way down to 19th overall. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that as we look at Radisic continuing to close in on Gray Newell. And just in front of this is that fight for second overall with Gondor and Smithson.
Radisic will be getting the information. You're about halfway through this race. Keep doing what you're doing. I mean, ideally in a race situation, you'd love a caution, but the trouble is it eats up so much of the clock here in these sprint races. You just got to get your head down and try and make it happen with lap time.
Here we go, back to the fight for second. Gondor has been able to hang on to it, and Smithson not going anywhere, coming through this difficult part of the track because of the painted lines from the airfield. What do you feel inside the race car, Calvin, as you're coming through, crossing those different surfaces?
Well, the key is just to roll off the brake pedal. You've got ABS that will kick in if you get one wheel start to lock a little bit, and that takes away the overall braking effect. I was watching in practice the other day, and a lot of drivers really just overcommitting to that corner, always scrambling through there. I think the key is to release that brake pressure early, roll speed through there, because otherwise I'll just play havoc with the ABS system.
This is Justin Wetherill we're looking at here, that gray-colored Ferrari from Triarci Competizione. He'll be driving with his driver coach, Ryan Dial, in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS this year, coming off 2 successful seasons in Ferrari Challenge, including a championship in Coppa Shell Am back in 2020, 3rd in his class last year, the Trofeo Pirelli Am2 class, with a couple of wins, and now making this jump with an operation that has a lot of experience racing Ferraris, just not at the GT3 level.
No, and it's a unique story that, you know, Justin was so successful in business, kind of sold his business and decided, listen, I'm going to go after my passion. That is driving a Ferrari. He bought a Ferrari road car from Triarci, and now he's racing for the team here in their home state. So pretty cool. He's got great mentorship there with Ryan Dial as his coach and driver partner this year. Mark Schulman is a great engineer. They got their part of the engineering group as well. So he's got a lot of great key elements in place. He's looking for success this year in his debut pro season.
Right now, he's about 6 seconds behind these two, who continue to scrap and claw for 2nd and 3rd. That's the fight we're watching. Gondor in the Lamborghini, Smithson in the Mercedes. Look how close to the wall they get, but that's where the speed is found, right?
It is. You just got to really try and maximize the radius through any corner, but you know, you got to get brave on these street circuits, and you can't afford a little slip. Sometimes the very edge of the road, there's a little crowning effect with streets, and that takes the grip away, so you have to be careful.
And that crowning was there to help rainwater wash away and help you in your road car. That's not what you want in your race car.
And that's typically where all the marbles and the dust kind of congregates there on the outside of the corners, because the water just keeps it there, nowhere for the dust and debris to go. You see Ziad there, he's really just trying to get super defensive now, kind of moving his car in the middle of the road. He's taking a very shallow approach into some of these corners, Smithson down to the inside. Will he push it here? Traffic up ahead. He's got to be careful. Ziad overcommits. Misses his braking point a little bit. Smithson to the inside. He takes the position.
Yes, he does. Book it. Scott Smithson to P2, and that time used traffic to his advantage. Those are the lessons from yesterday enacted today.
Yeah, Ziad actually missed his braking point a little bit. I think he may have been distracted by that GT4 car. Let's take another look at it from a different angle there. And there you see Smithson on the best part of the racetrack, where the rubber, where the grip is, and easily out-accelerates the Lamborghini off the corner.
Great job by the relatively inexperienced Scott Smithson, who has quickly gotten up to speed. And you have to believe that this car could be one to watch, not just all season in GT America, but in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, the 90-minute 2-driver format. He's got a pretty good co-driver to turn that thing over to.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see him and Sellers work together. But up front right now is George Kurtz. He's got about a 15-second lead with 17 minutes on the board. This is going to be the key right now, to analyze George's lap times versus Smithson. Does Smithson have enough time to catch him?
Mercedes versus Mercedes, but 2 different teams running those programs, perhaps different philosophies for getting the speed, so we'll keep an eye on that. George Kurtz heavy on the light flashing button to make sure the GT4 traffic knows he is coming, as I think George probably is aware at this stage. It's a different driver running P2. That battle has broken off, and now Smithson with clear sailing to try and chase him down.
Yeah, and I think with George, when he gets confidence, he can really perform. I think sometimes he gets out of his groove a little bit, but when he's on it, boy, can he be successful. In 2017, he won what was the GTS championship then, essentially GT4 cars in the AM division, had 9 wins aboard a McLaren that he absolutely loved, just was really his sweet spot. And I think he's now getting that same feel with this AMG Mercedes as well.
Now we wondered if something was wrong with Jason Harward, and it appears to be the case. Remember, this is a car that had to be heavily repaired after a crash yesterday, and Jason appears stopped on track. That is an area of the track, though, where they will pull cars to in order to keep the race green, so hopefully that's the case. Hopefully Jason is all right. Didn't see any damage on that side of the car, but hard to say for sure.
Smithson across the stripe to see if that gap is coming down any. Yeah, a little bit. He's a little bit quicker, but He's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, just less than 15 seconds. That's a substantial amount. It's going to need to be about a second a lap.
Right.
You look at the clock, 15 minutes left. These laps are just a shade over a minute, 1:14, 1:15.
There's the pace of that new Porsche Cayman running in the Invitational class here this weekend as monster top speed is basically not homologated yet for GT4 competition. We hope to see that happen before the opening rounds of Sprint X at Sonoma in April. But Rob Holland didn't have a great start yesterday, got involved in that little incident down in turn 1, had some radiator damage, but just really using this as a test session this weekend.
Got word that Harwood hit the wall in turn 14. That was the source of his problems. This fight for second might not be over. CJ Moses in the lone GT2 car in the field has held up Scott Smithson somewhat. Euler as well in the SRQ BMW. It's a GT4 class car, and that brings Wetherill into the picture as well. He's this Ferrari coming through right here. He still needs to clear Moses, but he can see his quarry just ahead.
Yeah, he's up on the wheel doing a really nice job. I'm sure his confidence is building here. Now he's got to go up against that GT. Oh, look, is there a car to the inside? The Ziad may have gone around. Thought I saw a white car to the inside coming off of turn 14 there.
Eagle eyes, Calvin Fish, you're exactly right. Ziad Gondor spinning out of turn 14, gets it refired and will rejoin, but that will be costly. It's a bit of a respite then for Smithson. This is where, as a GT4 car, hard to know what to do. You know you're not going to be faster in the long run, but you don't want to give up the speed waiting for the GT3 car to accelerate.
He made the right choice there. That gap on the outside was diminishing pretty rapidly.
So now the fight for second is between Smithson and Wetherill, who might be the guy to watch. He has the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race now at a 1:13.6. That is at least 0.4 of a second better than anybody else has done so far.
Yeah, and that's quicker than we saw here yesterday. 13.9 was the fast lap yesterday that set pole today for George Kurtz. So fastest man on the weekend, not only the race.
You can tell, by the way, that he has that fastest lap by looking at the left-hand side of the screen. You see Wetherill's name, third on that pylon, with the number illuminated in purple. That's how you can tell he holds that distinction at any point in the race. 13 minutes to go. Still a big lead for George Kurtz in GT3 and overall. GT4, it's Jason Bell leading by a healthy margin over Derek DeBoer. Chris Gumprecht runs third. So the most compelling battle might be this one. Scott Smithson, Justin Wetherill, both making their series debuts here this weekend.
Massive lead now, nearly 22nd that George Kurtz has on the field, even though he doesn't have the fastest lap of the day. He just set his personal best at 1:14.0, about 3 to 4 tenths slower than Wetherill, but monster lead. He just needs to sit there. Remember, he swept the opening rounds of this championship last year at Sonoma, and then had a lot of struggles the rest of the way.
He was so impressive in doing that. One, he led flag to flag. The other, he got a penalty for a start infringement and had to go to the very back. I don't think there were any yellows, and he just raced his way through the field to win overall. That was massively impressive from George to open the season and indeed the history of GT America. Those were the first races in series history 1 year ago. As we go back to GT4, and Jason Bell, in spite of that little damage, looks pretty cosmetic to the driver's side of that race car.
Split has definitely been torn up there, so it will really be losing a lot of the front downforce on the car. Certainly in the braking department as well will be affected. But sometimes, if the car was a little bit loose, it's taken away the not pinning the nose as much. It can help you out, actually.
That's what an engineer wants to hear.
No, it's like you fine-tune everything to the nearest millimeter, and suddenly there's big chunks of car missing, and the wheels are pointing in the wrong direction, and the driver will go faster sometimes.
Gondor has recovered, still runs in the 4th spot. David Askew is about a straightaway behind, it would appear. This is Ross Schwest. Cool story. This team, Ross had a great run to 4th yesterday. He's 7th at the moment. Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT4, as you can see. And it's a new name for the team. It was 3R Povolato Racing last year. This year under the Schwest Povolato Racing. Aaron Povolato, his co-driver, his driver coach, will be racing with him in Pirelli GT4 America. Running right behind him is Paul Sparta for Random Vandals Racing. But Schwest, that team now being run out of a shop in Indianapolis, and longtime mechanic Doug Livingston working on that car from his shop.
Ross and Aaron have been working together like 10 years, I think. Just a massive relationship, so the chemistry is obviously great.
graduate of Ferrari Challenge. Rosh West from New Orleans in Louisiana. And I believe I have this right. He still, I think, holds the Louisiana high school basketball state record for most career points scored. Or no, it was most assists in a high school basketball career. A really good basketball player. Played as a walk-on at LSU, if I'm remembering this right. I thought I had this written down, and apparently I don't. So this is off the cuff. Gives you some idea of the athlete he was, though, in his youth. And still today, for that matter.
Did a great job, as is Paul Sparta, giving chase there. Another solid run after a good run here yesterday. Paul Sparta, first pro year in racing was last year. Learned a lot, had a lot of success. Finished third in the Sprint X Championship in the AM division with 7 podiums. Had a win at Sebring with Al Carter. Look for better things this year.
It's a team that's been busy as well. This is by no means the first race of the year for them. They were down in Daytona. They've been doing some AER and some other kind of club-level endurance racing events as recently as last weekend, actually.
They were in Road Atlanta just last weekend. A couple of 5-hour events there as we watch George Kurtz here. See that hood kind of fluttering at speed there as the air kind of just gets under that leading edge. George is very much in a groove. He needed a day like today. Just nice, solid, clean start. No pressure from behind. Just hit his marks. But it takes a lot of concentration on these street circuits not to make that fatal error.
Look at the traffic. Keep in mind, these are city streets these drivers are racing on. The speed limit here is what, 25, 30 miles per hour on a normal day? What are we expecting from a GT4 car under race conditions?
Oh, they're probably about 130, 135 down this back stretch here. Key with the GT4 cars is their cornering ability. You just have a nice amount of downforce, but not so sensitive that you can't follow the cars closely, one behind the other, and take away the aero. So great racing class.
Just behind, got to look at the Premier Racing car. Change in position. We'll get to that story if we can in a moment, but a change here. Derek DeBoer just dropped from second down to third in GT4. Chris Gumprecht in this Mercedes from Rintec, looking very strong. Great run, and this is how we got it done.
Down at the turn 1, Derek just overcommits there, it looks like. Just getting in super deep, washes out wide, he's in the gray. Gumprecht, just as we saw earlier in the race with Smithson, massive grip there on the inside of that corner. Just takes the position away. So now for DeBoer, he's got to try and hang on to that podium run. He's got Uretsky that he saw yesterday, almost a cut and paste of that bright yellow Super in his mirrors again.
Yes, this is the old Yogi Berra quote, right? Deja vu all over again. It's happening here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Under 10 minutes to go, and Uretsky seeking yet another podium to get his season started. The driver from Yekaterinburg in Russia.
This Supra has been super successful since it debuted a couple of years ago on North American soil. They've now sold in excess of 20 of these cars in the US. Great support, big transporter here in the paddock, giving the customers the support they need on a race weekend. Steve Hallam is leading the charge, ex-McLaren Formula One engineer. Really top-notch people.
Accelerating performances, the team saw them doing some TC stuff in the past. This Supra has proven to be really a popular platform since its debut, which really wasn't all that long ago.
Saw Derek DeBoer there trying to go back on the attack. They're trying to wrestle that second position away from Gumprecht.
Weatherall, yeah, running third at the times, and Smithson has really rebounded. He just put in his best lap of the weekend, a 1:13.8, and that was...
Oh, Gumprecht in trouble. DeBoer's trying to take advantage. Chris just got in super deep there, down into the brake zone for turn 10. Almost stalled the car, not literally, but going through the corner. Didn't carry the speed there, and Derek was about to pounce on him, but he's got to be careful here. He doesn't open up the door for Uretsky, and he does.
Loisy needed no second invitation, diving to the inside, but now has to go defensive because Derek anxious to get that position back. This is great news for Gumprecht, but here we go. Third and fourth up for grabs in GT4. What a move from DeBoer around the outside. Can he get it slowed down?
Can't, just keeps it off the wall there, just really threw it in there. Total commitment from Derek DeBoer. I love it. Fast Life TV will love that moment, but nonetheless couldn't quite grab the position back.
Now Gray Newell now attacking, plus the overall leader coming through. This is not what George Kurtz wants to see. Here's Newell up the inside of De Boer. They make contact at the apex. Both able to continue on. Can Newell clear him? No. Right in front of the leader, and the radiator punctured on Derek De Boer's car. That's a lot of liquid on the racetrack. Right in front of the leader, and De Boer hard into the fence.
That's a shame. That's going to bring out full course yellow, and not a lot of time left on the board. So anxious moment there for our overall leader and GT3 leader, George Kurtz there. Just sat back patiently and waited for it to develop.
I hope the rest of the front runners saw that picture as well. They can tell their drivers, be aware, there will be a lot of liquid on the racetrack. That was a lot of water pouring out of that Porsche.
There'll be a skating rink over in that sector of the racetrack for sure.
For now, it shows green flag. George Kurtz out in front, under 5 minutes to go. What has been a largely clean race. What did you make of there? We see the double yellows at the starter stand. Here's the replay. What do you think, Cal?
Well, I think at a certain point you need to give it up. You're kind of in no man's land there, down to the inside. For Gray, he didn't go right to the curb, but just not enough room for both cars to coexist there. And then you can see with the punctured radiator, front tires underneath the water there as he's turning through the corner, and Derek just punches the wall.
That's tough to see. Derek has had a few big impacts over the last couple of seasons, going back to last year at Nashville. Another huge one at Watkins Glen. This one not quite to that level, but...
That's the old car. They got a brand new car on its way from Germany to start their Sprint X Championship season. He and Jason Alexandridis will be co-driving with the TRG entry, but coming off that nice podium run here yesterday for Derek De Boer. Sad to see that car in the fence hard.
Really, that all started for him a few laps before, when he got caught in the wars and lost a spot. He tried to go around the outside at 13-14. That let Uretsky come through, and all of that just put him on the back foot.
Yeah, he made that monster move down in turn one, got wide, and that suddenly allowed Gray Newell to have the run. He tried to get defensive there, hang on to it through that little tight sector, but as I say, it's so tight through there, you got to kind of give it up at some point. I think Derek was just a little bit too aggressive there.
Let's look at the running order as it stands. With 3.5 minutes to go, I think they might be hard-pressed to restart this one. So, the podiums as they run: George Kurtz, Scott Smithson, Justin Wetherill. Great job for him to perhaps score his first career podium in only his second race. And dropping down to GT4, what a celebration it would be tonight in Tampa if this were to hold. And Jason Bell,
I was going home, maybe I'll hang around for a bit.
if he holds on for that win. Chris Gumprecht, really impressive. We saw him make the move on De Boer, but really didn't see much of his race before then. Great job keeping the nose clean and showing some good pace when it counted.
Yeah, that's going to give him a lot of confidence for the rest of the season. Great to get that solid result in. I think we're going to finish here behind the safety car, unfortunately, so he should hold on to that podium run. Uretsky, 2 really solid runs here. 4th yesterday, should be a podium today, so nice debut for him with that Toyota Supra, making the move from Mazda MX-5 Cup.
This would be a career best finish in this championship, at least, for Gumprecht. He had a 3rd last year in Watkins Glen, the second race there. He ran a partial schedule starting at Road America. And this is probably the man you want to be friends with here tonight. He's got a bunch of friends here in town. This is where he's from. He knows the place to go out and have the party. And almost better it comes on day 2 of the weekend, because you don't have a race tomorrow to worry about.
Celebrate a little bit harder on day 2, that is for sure.
The good times roll. And how about George Kurtz? Not a great day yesterday. Had some just niggling issues throughout the weekend, but put it on pole and then comprehensive.
Case what might have been yesterday, if we reflect back to even qualifying, they had a transponder issue and were parked late in qualifying. Didn't allow them to really lay down more than 1 hot lap. Spoke to Bill Riley this morning. He said, I'm not sure we could have had pole. We could have started further up front, but nice rebound. Fastest lap yesterday, gets the pole today, got the start. Chaos behind him once again, and just stroked it, really.
Saw the graphic a moment ago. Justin Wetherill, CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race. What a quick study he's proven to be. Curious to see what he and Ryan Dial, who he's been working with in a coaching role in Ferrari Challenge, now they get to drive together for the first time. That could be a really potent pairing.
Yeah, some exciting combinations to look forward to when we get to Sonoma next month. So Curious to see how these AMs can fare in which is going to be even more heat in the battle with the GT World Challenge America Championship.
Well, it's been a good way to whet the appetite, that's for sure, and sets the table nicely for the rest of the season. And we see the white and yellow flags displayed simultaneously, so barring something catastrophic and unforeseen on this final lap behind the safety car, we know our podiums. Now let's give a call to the Porsche, the new Porsche of Rob Holland, who ends up in 8th overall, the best of the, call it pseudo GT4 cars, because again, that Porsche has not been fully homologated. That's why it's running as an invitational car. Got taken out on lap 1 yesterday. This is a new car for the team. They ran the Mustang last year and had some success, 3rd in the championship. But Rob did a great job to get up to 8th overall today and was not headed by any of the GT4 cars, as we would have expected. That car showed great pace all weekend.
Yeah, looking at his fast lap at 1:18.1 compared to Bell's fast lap at 1:19.6, for example. So about a second and a half quicker than GT4. He's pretty much unrestricted. They really haven't homologated or done any balance of performance to that car right now. But it's a solid piece. It's already had success on North American soil, so we expect that car to be a factor in all of our GT4 championships this year.
And that homologation process will be done by the time we get to Sonoma. So for the teams that intend to campaign, that is the new Cayman you're looking at right there. Rotec Racing, Rob Holland driving. For those teams that plan to campaign the new Porsche machinery, that was a little close. The points battle begins in earnest at Sonoma, and we touched on this yesterday, but it was added to the regulations in response to this that teams were allowed to drop 2 races effectively. And one thing I'm not clear on is whether that means you can pick and choose races across multiple weekends, or you have to pick a specific weekend that you can drop those results for as far as points are concerned. But that way the cars that were running as invitational class cars this weekend are not disadvantaged. Here we go. Not the way we hoped it would end, but it was a deserving victory, no doubt about it. George Kurtz, his 3rd win in GT America, powered by AWS competition, and his 1st in the Riley Motorsports stable here in SRO America. He wins overall and in the GT3 class. GT4 to the hometown guy, graduated from the University of South Florida in Tampa, grew up in Tampa, lives in this area as well. How about it? Congratulations, Jason Bell, a long-awaited win here on home soil.
Yeah, nice job, Jason. As we said, he'll celebrate tonight, but looking forward to another really solid season. Andrew Davis doing the coaching and co-driving in Sprint X competition. Great things ahead for that pair of drivers.
Looking forward to hearing from our winners with Amanda when they make their way around. Sonoma, a much different challenge than here in St. Pete. You've got the rolling hills, natural terrain road course, but one that presents almost as many challenges, if not more, than what you see here on the street course, especially given that surface.
Yeah, it takes big commitment, low grip, lots of elevation change. It should be a monster weekend of racing there with all the classes that we have in our championship season starting there. So looking forward to it. That was a brilliant place to go, but totally different venue. Natural road course. We replaced the white walls with green grass, so should be fun.
George Kurtz, your winner. Scott Smithson, 2 impressive drives to get his season started. He comes up as the runner-up. Justin Wetherill will round out the GT3 podium. Ziad Gondor, David Askew, Jeff Burton make up positions 4, 5, and 6. Then CJ Moses in the lone GT2 entry. Rob Holland in that invitational Porsche Cayman raced his way up to 8th. Jason Bell, the winner in GT4, with Chris Gumprecht and Moisey Uretsky rounding out the podium. Marco Radicic, the winner yesterday, he finishes 4th in race 2 of the weekend today. Gray Newell, Rosh West, and Paul Sparta round out the rest of the top 15 overall. The second page, those a bit less fortunate. Adam Adelson really just lucky to be here today. A big hit yesterday. That car was damaged. Big effort to get them on the grid. He comes from 16th overall. Sean Whalen, Nick Shaney, Custodio Toledo, and Rick Euler, the latter 3 making their first pro racing starts this week, and they have some experience now to draw from moving forward. Derek DeBoer, unfortunately, involved in that incident late, credited with 21st, Harwood Putt, and others down towards the end that were somewhat less fortunate here today. But no misfortune for this man who led from green flag to checkered flag, with the yellow thrown in the mix as well. George Kurtz for the third time a winner at GT America, powered by AWS.
Yeah, superb run. Just as we thought, well, maybe someone can go catch him. He just stretched the lead even further. No mistakes, managed the traffic perfectly. Big day for George.
And he had a bit of a setback last year, I think it's worth noting, and missed some races, dealing with some various things, as well as business commitments. But he looks loaded for bear this year.
He does. Had that big hit at Road America, broke his forearm, I believe it was. So came back at the end of the year, got back behind the wheel, and he's ready to go again.
Had a busy start to the year running the 24 Hours of Daytona in an LMP3 car. We'll be doing more of those throughout the season. But this is the main program, and he's in victory lane in race number 2 and gets to chat with Amanda.
Well, George, you picked up the CrowdStrike fastest lap yesterday, get the pole position. That is where you would stay for the whole race. The guys were just saying that you look loaded and ready to go this season. Why are you the car to beat?
It's a good question. I think we put the effort in. We got a new team we're really excited about. Done a lot of racing already this year in Dubai and other places in Daytona. So we're excited to come back with a strong car and a great team.
We know it's a mixed class racing here in St. Pete. You were right behind that GT4 battle with Derek DeBoer and Gray Newell. What was your vantage point of it?
I saw it all, and it didn't look like it was going to end well, so I backed off a little bit. And, and when they hit, I saw fuel come out, and I was just worried about, spinning off the racetrack. So we're fortunate that there was no incident there at the end, given that it was such a strong performance. And, just so excited for the team.
George Kurtz in his third GT America win. Congratulations.
That was interesting to get his perspective. He had the best view of that incident. Not the view he wanted, though.
No, you could tell it was going to get rough there, and there's nowhere to go. You just kind of ricochet off these concrete walls here. He was lucky to escape that moment.
But also good forethought, right? To see what was setting up, and maybe a driver who hadn't been at this as long as George has wouldn't have recognized the danger.
Well, he'd put the work in too. He had such a monster lead. That takes the pressure off. You got someone right on your tail. If you haven't put in that strong performance to begin with, suddenly it changes the whole perspective. But nice, solid run for him.
And as we've talked about, Jason Bell winning on home soil. Can't wait for this interview, Amanda. Actually, we'll skip that one for the moment, and we'll check in with CJ Moses, who was the GT2 winner.
Oh, well, you can see that the celebration has started for Jason Bell. That's why we're with CJ Moses first. And CJ, you are the lone GT2 car on the field, but it wasn't without problems that you guys headed into the weekend. How proud of you of your team to bounce back?
Couldn't be more proud. We started off the week with the steering wheel went bad, and on these cars that controls half the car. So we, when I upshifted, downshifted, and did the opposite on the other. So we went through a lot. Had a steering wheel flown all the way from Texas overnight to us. Got it on the car. So I started off behind the 8 ball a bit there, but made it up, and really proud with what the team provided. Cars was excellent. GMG did a great job, and I'm just looking forward to the next race because we got a lot more in her, a lot more in the driver.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Really cool car. Great to see the GT2 car on the grid. I hope we see more as the season goes along. It's a neat platform, just waiting for it to catch on.
They're spectacular machines, monster horsepower, and they're designed to not have a ton of downforce. So it's a real handful around these streets here at St. Petersburg. I think they'll embrace that car even more when we get to some tracks which have a bit more open space to work with.
This would be a tough place to run a car in that configuration. So let's check back in with Amanda down in the pit lane.
And he has already confirmed that Tampa is going to be on fire tonight. But after a 5th place finish yesterday, you bounce back here today, get the win here on home soil. You just said that it was difficult driving this car. Is this one of your proudest wins so far?
I say yes, especially that the starts are just crazy. I thought for sure I was going to get through, and then someone tapped me from behind, and then just kind of like what happened yesterday, it kind of got shoved forward. Somehow, luckily, I was able to continue. Got through it, and the car was tough to drive, and then I just had to change the way I drove. So, yeah, I want to thank Meat Market and Paddock One Garages and my team GMG, Andrew Davis, my wife Danielle, for everybody for supporting. I think I got 110 people here right now. So that was difficult, but it's worth it. I love it.
Congratulations, Jason.
Thank you.
So just like your Twitter account, he gained some followers overnight. He had 100 yesterday.
How about that? Good for Jason. Congratulations. And again, a driver that really came on strong last year to win that championship. Looked like he was out of the mix and then went on a tear. Here is the way this race played out. Some highlights. This was the initial start, and it got interesting early.
Down to the inside there, you see the white Lamborghini Huracan as Gando gets a little tap from CJ. Obviously, the Callaway goes for a spin. Dascolo's car is damaged, unfortunately, our winner from yesterday.
Disappointing into the day for him. There is Moses making it through after some of that contact early. George Kurtz built that lead in the early stages. Never really had to look back, did he?
No, he didn't, but there was some great battles throughout the field. Here's some GT4 moves. I think that's Coleman there, taken to the escape route. That's the problem. Once you get in the gray there, don't have the grip to work with.
Rob Holland in the beautiful new Porsche Cayman working his way from the back to the front. Did a nice job in the Invitational class. And Justin Wetherill with the fastest lap of the race, carving his way through after getting shuffled back in that early fracas.
Here we see some moves, multi-class racing trying to work together. This is De Boer being passed there by a couple of the GT3 cars, and this is a big moment in this race. Big battle there for 4th position at the time. You can see the damage to the front end of De Boer's car. He's got water from the radiators, no turning ability, crunches the wall, and we end up under a full course yellow.
And all right through the windshield of the overall leader, George Kurtz, but he survived, flashes the lights, weaves back and forth, and lets everyone know that, yes, indeed, he is #1 here today on the streets of St. Petersburg. Great way to start the season, Calvin. Sonoma up next. Can't wait.
It'll be fun. Can't wait to get to California.
So that is up next on the schedule. Thanks for joining us here on the streets of St. Petersburg. Full slate of SRO America competition when we head your way next. That again in Sonoma in just about a month's time. So long from St. Pete.